Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to A Queens Roundtable Leadership Symposium. Or, yeah, A Queens, I'm sorry, it's been a long day. A Queens Roundtable Leadership Symposium. This particular one is titled My Health is My Wealth. I am your host, Dr. Jacqueline Kabah Harrison, and I am super excited to bring this segment to you. I have a guest here, Miss LaShawn, and I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a moment. But I want you to just get comfortable, grab a pen and a pad because you're going to want to take some notes. And that's the point of this. This whole symposium this time, which is titled My Health is My Wealth, is specifically around mental health awareness. And we're going to be talking about this particular interview as well as some of the other panels and interviews that are a part of this particular symposium. Again, is all around mental health awareness. And when you know better, you can do better, right? And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So that's why forums such as this is so important for us to actually do them and listen, take notes, get connected, reach out and ask the questions so we can get the answers, so we can know how to best move forward, right? Because that way you can get a plan. So I am really excited again. And let me say this too before I forget. Make sure you subscribe to the A Queens Roundtable YouTube channel, because that way you can receive different alerts and updates in terms of everything that's going on. Okay. And that way you'll get an alert of when I'm getting ready to go live, and you can make sure that you join. And that way you can ask, whatever questions it is that you want to ask. Okay. But definitely, even whether you're joining us live or not, you can definitely leave whatever questions or comments you have in the comments. And I do encourage you to do so. All right. So, wanted to just kind of give you that little bit of an overview. So my guest today, she is going to basically introduce herself and share her story. And she's also going to, with that, and with sharing her story, give you some different tips and tools all around surrounding ADHD. Okay. So that way, if you've ever wondered about it, because sometimes we have like a question mark about it, maybe this, maybe that, or there's sometimes a lot of information going around that may not necessarily be true, or maybe may not quite hit the mark. But she's going to clear all of that up for us during this interview. So, Miss LaShawn, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. Again, my name is LaShawn Fairley, also known as the ADHD Cutie, all over social media. My story began with the birth of my son, who was born 2 months early, and he weighed only 2.5 pounds. So he stayed in intensive care for a little over a month. So I was aware of his possible deficiencies very early on, because when I took him to his very first pediatric appointment, the doctor informed me that he would more than likely have some developmental delays because he was born so early and he was so very underweight. That by itself can cause issues like ADHD because the brain doesn't have a chance to fully develop. And that in turn affects the executive function skills, and I'll get into that later. But I saw problems with him early on, even like through the developmental stages is pretty much what most people understand it to be. Your executive function skills are like your developmental stages, where you're learning different milestones at different ages and stages in your life. And he was delayed in those stages. Simple things like how babies are able to pull themselves up, how they know to fall on their bottom, crawling, walking, rolling over, all that stuff. He was delayed in. I had to literally show him how to do those things. And because I didn't know, first of all, that he had ADHD, and I definitely didn't know what it looked like, I was I was squabbling with the doctor. I was like, what do you mean I have to show him how? She's like, you got to get out on the floor and show him how to rock. I'm like, what do you mean? As a baby, they know how to do that. No, they don't. As part of their executive function skills, their developmental stages that they learn through their environment, through experiences, they learn it. Executive function skills, we are not born with those. We learn them throughout life. And so as he was going through school, I was getting phone calls and whatnot from teachers, emails. I got lucky in kindergarten that he had a kindergarten teacher who knew about ADHD because her son had ADHD and so did she. Still didn't dawn on me that maybe I might have it, but that was my first clue right there. Mama and son both have it. And so she said, you may want to get him diagnosed. I was like, okay, whatever that is. Okay, yeah, fine, I'll go get it diagnosed. Because I'm the type of person, I like to know what I'm dealing with. Took him to the doctor. She gave me a referral. So I had to get a specialist and have him get an assessment. For a lot of parents, they get stopped right there because most insurances don't cover the assessment or they only cover a portion of it, which means you have to pay out of pocket. That right there can be a problem for many parents. So that's as far as they get. I was fortunate enough that I had a good government job. So my insurance paid most of it. I only had to pay a little bit. And where I took him, they let me split the payments up. And that's something that the parents can ask. Can I split the payments up? They're not going to volunteer and tell you that. But if you ask them, yeah, a lot of them will say yes. So got his assessment. It was confirmed that he had ADHD. So I knew right away I needed to let the school know this, hoping that they would really just give me support and help me help him. But that really wasn't the case. It was a struggle all 12 years of his time in school. It wasn't really until he got, I guess like near the end of his 10th grade is when I started seeing similar symptoms in myself, especially with the comments that he would always get on his report card. Always, every semester, every quarter, same comments. Can't pay attention, not finishing work, not turning in work. Just couldn't seem to stay still, always moving around, not staying in his seat, talking too much, all those things. And I used to get in trouble for stuff like that when I was in school. I'm like, yeah, he just got it from his mom and that's it. No, it was much more than that. I did not understand that those are some of the symptoms of ADHD. That is what ADHD can look like in the classroom. That is what neurodivergent symptoms that are affecting our executive function skills. That's what the behavior looks like in the classroom. And so the more I'm seeing that I have similar symptoms, even at work, I was always getting in trouble for not staying in my seat. And once I did my research and understood what was going on in my brain, the ADHD brain has to stay stimulated. It thrives on that. It has to have it. It's not an option. It has to have it or it will create the stimulation. That's why you see these folks out here doing this crazy bungee jumping and all that stuff. Their brain needs to stay stimulated. And so the job for me was not stimulating. I hated it. I mean, at first it was exciting, something new I'd never done before. Oh, it was exciting, new job, new blah, blah, blah. That quickly just, yeah.
Okay.
That quickly just,
Let me get
but, it was good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead at the church finger.
I'm getting you the church finger. Okay, so let's go back. So talk to us a little bit more because myself, and I know it's a lot of other parents out there, what does it look like when they're young, like in their, I don't know, elementary school, first grade, maybe up through middle school? What does it look like? What should people be looking for?
For Well, keep in mind there's not one size fits all for ADHD. There's actually three different types.
Okay, three different
So
types.
the symptoms may be different. And depending on the assessment they get, if they're getting a just broad ADHD assessment, then that's the treatment that they're also getting. So a
Okay,
lot of parents are saying, yeah, I gave him medicine, but it didn't work. Well, did you give it the medicine for the type of ADHD he's got?
okay.
That's the thing. But what it looks like can be a lot of them will have a messy room,
Mm-hmm.
and some people will dismiss some of these things as, especially if it's a boy, that's just typical boy behavior.
Mm-hmm.
All boys are just hyper. No, 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 no. He runs around like the Energizing Bunny on crack, okay? That is not typical boy behavior. Some of them at a point, most boys at a point will get tired and stop. Your ADHD child is not going to get tired.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
non-stop, like over the top energy,
Okay.
over the top energy. For the girls, a lot of girls are just like daydreamy, or they may have that like far off kind of distant staring, and not seems like they're not really paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see, for like if they're in, let's say, if they're in preschool, again, it's going to be mainly that excess energy because they're too young to know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So telling them to just sit down and be quiet, that doesn't work.
Not gonna work.
That doesn't work. They can't just it's like telling them to stop breathing. It's literally, that's what it is. They do not understand how to just quiet all that energy and just sit down. They just literally cannot do that.
Okay.
Once they get into older elementary, going into middle school, especially
Mm-hmm.
when they get into middle school, you probably will see a huge difference
So what that
because
look?
hormones start kicking in,
Mm-hmm.
and hormones affect ADHD
Mm.
because the ADHD is affecting also your neurotransmitters in the
Okay.
brain. Hormones are also affecting that. So you may see a big difference. You may even think that he doesn't have it anymore, because a lot of times they'll lose that hyperness or it'll subside a lot,
Mm-hmm. Right.
which is what I saw. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
that hyperness subsided on the outside, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still going on the inside. Their brain is just over hyper, just going, 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 going.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot shut that off. Um, there comes the social awkwardness. Now, I know with a lot of teenagers, that's a thing anyway, but it's really apparent with ADHD and other neurodivergent brains because they don't understand like jokes sometimes. They may not get it when someone's making fun of them,
Okay.
especially if it's somebody supposed to be a friend. They'll laugh at the joke thinking that it's funny, not understanding that the friend is really making fun of them.
Okay.
Um, yeah. The social distancing, they have a problem with that. They may seem to be like right here,
Mm-hmm.
not understanding that. Okay. But see, kids aren't going to say, you're invading my social space. Kids are going to say, why are you so close in my face? Why are you in my face? Or
Right.
back up. Why, and so of course that hurts the ADHD kids' feelings, and they're very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
They're very sensitive. A lot of them have sensory processing disorders, meaning they're overly stimulated by different senses, certain smells, certain sounds. My son and
Okay.
I would definitely have issues with light.
Okay.
Um, and for him, it was also sounds. Now, I know for him, most babies don't like the vacuum, but for him, it was over the top. You would think he was trying to suck him up in the vacuum. That's how terrified he was just of the noise. He didn't have to see it, just to hear it.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so it's those things that they can look for at home. Again, at school, look for and these are consistent things. I mean, everybody has some functions or deficits in their executive function skills on some level. But for the ADHD and other neurodivergence, it is a consistent
Okay.
interruptive issue.
Okay.
Interrupts at home and interrupts at school or on the job as they get older. It is constant. And they have to learn strategies that they have to practice every single day to manage those symptoms. Again, it's mostly executive function skills. And for those who don't know, executive function skills are skills that you need every day to complete a task from beginning to end.
Okay.
A lot of people with deficits in executive function skills, whether it's an ADHD, autism, bipolar, epilepsy, any of those neurodivergent, they have trouble starting a task. You can tell a kid to go clean up the room. You can tell them that every single day. That does not mean they understand how to do that.
Okay.
What that looks like. And threatening them and saying, I'm going to beat your butt if you don't get it done, that's not helping.
Well, okay.
That is not helping because the brain, the neurodivergent brain sees that as a threat, so it's going to protect itself.
Okay.
And those kids that are fussing back, mouthing back, that is the brain protecting itself in the flight mode.
Okay.
The fight mode. The flight mode is they're going to withdraw, be scared, maybe even cry. That's the flight mode. Or there's also the freeze, where they just totally lock up.
Okay.
And you'll say, or you'll try to ask them a question, and they'll just be standing there because they don't know what to say. Their brain has literally locked up, just like a computer locks up, and you have to put the passcode in to open it back. That is what's going on in their brain. It's a protective mechanism. The brain protects itself just like the body does.
Okay.
I hope I answered that question.
No, I guess I'm thinking about what about I'm trying to bring it from like a younger, like you said, in like elementary and then like let's say middle school. And I know you said the younger version would be like a lot of, hyperactivity, I guess like over sensory. But now when they get a little bit older, you talked about the hormones. Now I'm wondering, I know you talked about the social awkwardness. What about the focus piece?
They're still gonna struggle with focus and attention.
And okay.
They will, especially with middle and high school, because they're going to start getting into subjects that they have no interest in.
Okay.
There's a lot of subjects in school that you have to take just to graduate. But for the ADHD brain, they just don't like it. It's boring. It may be too much.
Okay.
And because of how the schools are set up now, they're not going to slow the pace for that student.
Right.
So they're struggling to keep up.
Okay.
Because it's just overwhelming. Or it's just simply boring. They just don't like it. Their brain literally gets sluggish.
Okay.
So they have to find ways to constantly keep it awake.
They'll forget. You did mention that.
Or they'll do homework and forget to turn it in. They'll have it in their backpack, but they'll forget to turn it in. And a lot of parents don't understand that. They're like, how did you do the homework? I saw you do the homework. What do you mean you didn't turn it in? I saw you put it in the backpack. How did you take it to school and they're just fussing? It's how their brain works. We have to do a better job of understanding what that looks like. They literally cannot help it. They are not doing these things on purpose.
I know you talked about people a lot of times will think that they're lazy or they're just trying to be lazy.
They're not trying to be lazy. Their brains are not stimulated. Their brains need to be stimulated. They need to go back to making it fun to learn. We used to have that in our school. They've taken away the recess. There's not even fun in gym anymore. So there is no stimulation at all for them throughout the day. Not at all. It's just work, 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 work. Schedule, schedule, schedule. Do this, do this, do this. It has to be done by this way, da da
Mhm.
da da da, like robots.
Okay.
That is crippling for an ADHD student.
Mm.
That's crippling for any student struggling with executive function skills. They don't have to have ADHD.
Mhm.
Their executive function skills can be affected if they have some kind of post traumatic stress from childhood trauma,
Okay.
from like a sudden death in the family, military experience. Well, they don't have that yet, but uh, trauma to the head, getting kicked in the head, hit in the head,
Mm. Okay.
all those things can also affect the executive function skills.
So, okay, I have a question. So, give us a specific definition of executive functioning skills. What are they exactly?
Executive functioning skills, like I said, are your skills that you need to complete a task from beginning to end, meaning task initiation,
Okay.
prioritizing,
Mm.
time management, emotional regulation,
Okay.
uh, uh,
Time management, emotional regulation. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
those are the basic ones. But yeah, it's
Okay. And
yes,
that's
whatever you
executive
need to
function.
do to do a task. Like someone says to go and it's like cooking. You need to have the exact recipe and follow the exact instructions to make that recipe come out correctly.
Right.
For the
Okay.
ADHD brain or the neurodivergent brain, they don't always have the proper steps. They're either missing steps or they may not have them in the right order or they
Mm.
may not even know how to begin at all.
Okay. Okay. Now, if someone is a child is dealing with ADHD, what does that look like in terms of them being able to like maybe do reading comprehension? Like what does that look like for them? Is it only if they're interested in it, or is it just they're gonna struggle with that in general?
Well, that can be a couple of things. If they're interested in it, they're going to do great. Like for my son, history,
Excuse me.
he didn't really like reading, but he loved history, and history involves a lot of reading. But it was because of how the teacher presented it, it made
Mhm.
it interesting to his brain.
Okay.
So he loved history.
Okay.
So, um, but then he also had a vision issue, which is why he struggled a lot with his reading.
Mm.
His
Okay.
vision was not 20/20. His vision was a vision processing issue, which means his eyes are not properly, um, I'm sorry, his brain is not properly processing what his eyes are seeing. Okay. And because he's got two different vision issues, the left eye is seeing one thing and sending that signal to the brain, and the right eye is seeing something completely different and trying to send that signal to the brain. The brain cannot process two things at one time.
Okay.
It chooses to ignore one. So it ignored his right eye. So
Okay.
everything he saw was still askewed, but it was from whatever his left eye was seeing. And that was not perfect vision anyway. So but it became normal for him because that's how he was always seeing. I did not realize that until his vision specialist showed it to me on the wall. She actually projected onto the wall what his eyes were seeing when he would read. As one of his doctors said, "Have you ever watched him read?" I'm like, "What do you mean watch him read? I watch him read all the time." He's like, "No, have you really watched him read?"
Mm.
And that's when they put it up on the screen. And his eyes were literally jumping like this. He does not read in a straight line and
Mm.
then go down to the next one. It was his eyes are constantly jumping. I mean, it'll go back to the beginning
Mm.
of the sentence, down to the next one. But I'm like, how is he ever gonna comprehend anything like that? There's no way. He was
Okay.
like, yeah, that's exactly why he struggles with his reading. So that
Mm.
could be something that needs to be tested, especially if they're young because they're not able to communicate and tell you,
Right.
"Mommy, the words are jumping, or they may say that the words are jumping around on the page. Now, most moms or adults are going to say, she's got that over imagination, that overactive imagination. She makes up things like that. No, she's trying to tell you something. She just doesn't know how to tell you that her vision is blurry.
Okay.
She doesn't know how to tell you that her vision is cross-eyed and that the words look funny on the page, because they do. So if they're dealing with that, they're also going to be frustrated and not pay attention. The same symptoms that you're seeing in ADHD, you're going to see in a kid who's dealing with a vision processing issue or an auditory processing issue, because they can't keep up. So they get overwhelmed and they get frustrated, and on and on and on.
Yep, they get overwhelmed and they get frustrated. Yep. Then they're angry. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It
And
kind of
then
gets you kind of see.
yeah. And then you've got the kids that are teasing them. And a lot of times, unfortunately, the teachers are not seeing the teasing.
Right.
All they see is the kid's reaction to being teased. That's what they see.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the kid is acting up, misbehaving, disrupting the class. Well, no, you didn't see what initiated that behavior.
So I'm thinking about the next piece. So we talked a little bit about the symptomology for ADHD, what that looked like in boys, what it looks like in girls. Just some different things so they can kind of look at in the home as well as in the classroom.
Now, let me say the symptoms that I gave for boys and girls, that's a lot of times how it is, but not always. You can have a overly hyper girl and you can have a very subdued boy. It is possible. You can have, like my son started out very hyper, but then by the time he got to middle school, he was just so, I thought there was something wrong. He was just completely chilled out.
Okay. He went from one extreme to
yeah, he went from running around like
Okay.
Because he was just zoom, 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 zoom. Then all of a sudden he was just.
Okay. So let me ask you, so what about in adults? Because I know you have also learned in this whole process of learning more about ADHD and how to help your son, you've also learned about yourself and ADHD. So talk to us a little bit about adults. And is this something that you've always had, or was it developed later in life? And how does that work?
You're born with ADHD.
Okay.
A lot of people, if it develops later on, they either missed the diagnosis when they were earlier, or it may not necessarily be ADHD. It could be something else. And the symptoms are mimicking ADHD. That is possible. There are a lot of diagnoses out there that mimic the symptoms of ADHD. And usually the common denominator is the executive function skills. It always goes back to that. Always goes back to executive function skills. And so for me, my biggest thing, again, like I said, was staying in my seat, because the job was just so boring and monotonous. I did not like it at all. But I had to do it. It was a good job. Good benefits, good money. The benefits, good government,
Yeah.
I had all that. I mainly loved the flexibility, because I was able to take off to take my son to the doctor or go to the 504 meetings with the school. And they gave me that flexibility to do that without any problem. So I stuck it out. But the longer I stayed, the more I hated it, and the harder it was to stay focused and do the job and stay on task and remember emails, and stuff would just pile up. And it was hard. Oh my God, it was so hard.
Okay,
it was hard. And then
let me ask you this. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me just interject this. So I don't know what this is, and I don't think it's always been like this for me, but I have a very difficult time like focusing. Like they like at jobs, just in general, they want you to manage so many different things at one time. They want you to, answer the phone. They want you to you know, check emails and they want you to do all of this multitasking. And for me, it's like I'm okay with doing a task, but it has to be one task at a time.
Right,
Like it's
right,
challenging.
right.
Like whenever I have to move from task to task, I get
Yes,
so thrown off, and it takes
yeah.
me a long time to kind of get back on track.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
that something similar to like what you experienced?
Yes, because at my job, everything had a deadline, and the deadline was now.
Right.
This has to be done today. This has to be done today. Oh, this email has to be done. No, 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 no. I used to
Mm,
tell them, and they used to laugh at me. I was like, look, even Jesus took a break on the seventh day,
right.
okay? Everything was not a priority. He did not do everything on the first day, he did not do everything on the second day. He
Mhm.
spread it out in 6 days, and on the seventh day, he rested. Now,
Right.
you all need to decide what is important right now. What do you need right now? I'll finish that and then I'll come to you and then you can tell me what's the next thing that needs to be done
Right.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they're coming to me, you're falling behind and you're working, da 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 da. I just have to let them know, look, this is overwhelming the way you are presenting this to me. My brain doesn't work like that.
Right.
I have to do one thing at a time. The brain, like I said, the brain is not structured to do that. You can do like light things. A lot of people think that they can multitask. The brain is not developed to do that. You can do light stuff like answer the phone and file your nails or answer the phone and send a text. That's not heavy cognitive work for the brain. I'm talking heavy. You can't write a research paper and do a report and or write a research
Right.
paper and listen to a hearing
Mm-hmm.
in
Right.
Congress. And yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
brain is not set up to do that. So I just had to actually talk to them. And I made sure that I put it in my record. Now, I know a lot of people are not comfortable doing that because they think that the job will have repercussions.
Right.
But when I spoke with my specialist, she said, no, that is discrimination. They cannot do that.
Okay.
They cannot do that. And they need to offer some kind of accommodations to help you do your job better.
Right.
And so a lot of times I was very distracted because of the environment that I was in. I was in like a call center environment, where everything's in the center, cubicles, and that is the worst type of environment
Mm.
for anybody with a neurodivergent brain.
Okay.
It's overwhelming, it's too distracting. There's really no way to calm all of that chaos in that type of work environment. For me, I started using my headphones and I would just turn on my music. That helped to drown it out, but it also helped to drown out people that I didn't want to talk to, especially when you're coming to me at lunch and you need something. Yeah, okay. I'm busy. Okay. Uh, but when I was actually working at a call center and that didn't work, I couldn't have my headphones on listening to music and have my headphones on talking to people. I would color. That's why I
Mm.
ended up creating the coloring book that I have.
Okay.
Coloring really helps a lot. So while they're up there fussing, I put it on mute and I can do my little coloring.
Delicious. Okay.
That helps to calm the brain so you can think.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, like you said, there's just so many little things that they want done. The brain gets overwhelmed. We got to
Right.
find a way to calm it down. The brain cannot think, process anything when it's overwhelmed, when it's
Right.
afraid, when it's anxious, when it's upset.
Mm-hmm.
You have to calm it down. However that looks for you. Music, go on a walk,
Yeah.
up and down the steps,
Right.
a couple of times, walk around the
Right.
building, whatever you need. If your job gives you 30 minutes for lunch and two 15-minute breaks, take that. A
Okay.
lot of people like to combine it all and take an hour, but no,
Mm-hmm.
your brain needs that break. It needs both of those breaks, especially as it gets in the afternoon towards time to
Right.
go home,
Right.
because the brain is just done by then. A lot of that, and that's what happens a lot of times with our kids in school. They eat lunch so late.
Mm.
their brain is done by then. Their brain, that ADHD brain or neurodivergent brain, is fried by the time it gets to lunch. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's the only outlet they have of stimulation is at lunch. Because again,
Right.
there's no outside recess anymore, and PE is no longer fun.
Right.
My son had tests in his textbook in PE. I'm like, well, why do you have a textbook in PE? That's what PE is now. It's like a regular class. They're taking tests and reading chapters, and I'm like,
Mhm.
what? The only physical activity they were doing was first thing when they got there, they had to run a couple of laps. That was it.
Yeah.
So the brain gets no stimulation at all, at least not stimulation that they need.
Right.
Please understand me when I say they need it.
Right.
If they're working all day in school, please let them take a break when they get home.
Right. Okay.
Go
Okay.
outside and do something. If it's a nice day, make them go outside, ride a bike, play basketball for a little bit, time them, give them a specific time to be back.
Mm. Okay.
Not when the lights go off, when the lights go off on the no. ADHD people need specifics. My dad used to do that with my son. Make sure you come back when it's dark. Okay. Well, for my son, when it's dark, that's like 8, 9 o'clock.
Right. Right. What? Right. So, like, what does that mean?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to be specific. When that
Yeah.
light comes on, that's when you need to be back in the house. When
Hmm.
that street
And
light comes on right there in front of the apartment, that's when you need to be back in the house. Yeah.
and I have noticed that, and I'm thinking about myself, and I've found that like over the years, I have to like even getting through school, it was certain things that I had to do in order to be able to keep up with everything. And I became like so obsessed with doing those things to keep up with it. Like I often share, and I share this with my son. I remember in being in college, to even remember things, I would have to put it to a song. You know
Yeah,
what I
me
mean?
too.
In
Oh
that
my
way,
gosh, yes, yes,
I
yes.
could remember it. And
We
I'd be
have to
walking
make
around the house and
we
having
have
a
to make it
song.
make sense. Yes, we have to make it make
I
sense
have to
to
right, and that's the thing, and that's what I've done. But
Mhm.
for some reason, I was able to do it, and I know that there's a lot of kids that weren't able to do that. But for whatever the reason, I knew, and I didn't know what it was called. I just knew that the way the information was being given to me, I had to
Didn't
take it and
make
do something
yeah,
else with
put
it.
it right,
Otherwise, it
right,
wasn't gonna happen. And
right.
that's even the same way at work.
With the
Like I
job,
know
yes.
that when
Yes.
they give me information, like first of all, I can't have a whole bunch of information. Like
Right.
this person coming to me asking this, and oh, I want to show you this spreadsheet, and
Mhm,
did you talk to
mhm.
that client? Like that's just
Yeah,
too much for
too
me.
much.
Like
Yeah.
I just have to say, listen,
The brain gets overstimulated.
I get
Yes.
overstimulated, and I
Mhm,
constantly all day long, I keep saying to myself, okay, I got a couple minutes. Let me get myself together. I'm constantly getting
mhm,
myself together and regrouping, but now I'm realizing that it's because I'm overstimulated.
mhm,
You know what I mean? And I
mhm.
spend a lot of time, and it looks like I'm being lazy or unproductive, but it's
Or
because of
in
the fact that
or
I have to,
incompetent or
or
incompetent
incompetent
because
because I
yeah, because a
can't.
lot of them are like, well,
Yep.
because if like for me, if they're giving me too many instructions, if I have to go to your desk and you're giving me all these instructions, I am
Hmm.
literally gonna forget half of that by the time I get back to my desk.
Yep.
I'll remember the last thing you said because that's fresh on my mind. But
Hmm.
if you said a whole bunch of stuff before that
Yep.
and it took you 10, 15 minutes to tell me,
Hmm.
by the time I'm gonna forget.
Yeah. I
Send
have
me
to
an
write it
email.
all
Send
down.
me an email. No, send me an email, or either I
Hmm.
need to record it so
Yeah.
I can go back at my pace.
Yeah. And
That's
it's
why I
so
say,
funny because I've always had to do that, and I
mm-hmm,
never really thought about it,
yeah,
but it's just that depending on the situation, every time I get a new boss, let's just say, I have to figure out because 9 times out of 10, the way that person's going to give me information,
yeah,
it's not going to gel. It's not going to
mm-hmm,
gel with me, or
right,
even instructors in school.
yeah,
You know what I
and
mean? And
see,
I knew it that very first time when they first started talking. I'm like, oh, this ain't gonna work. I
yep,
got to figure
yep.
something out.
And see, you also got to remember, Dr. Jackie, they too may be struggling with executive function skills. So
Mhm.
the way they're presenting it makes sense to them,
To
even
them,
if it
and
doesn't make sense to us.
yep, exactly.
I
Yeah.
realized that with a supervisor at my job because she was asking for so many things. I went over everything in my head and I had everything laid out in a way that made sense to me so I could just boom, 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 boom,
Mm-hmm.
knock it out. But because it didn't make sense to her, she
Mm.
came in and just rearranged everything.
Mm. Okay.
No, now see now I'm lost.
Right.
You've messed me up. You messed me up. I need you to
Right.
leave my stuff alone. It made sense to
Right.
me.
You
I
know
need to
what?
explain it so it makes sense to you. You don't have to look at it and it makes sense to you.
You know
I'm
what?
gonna explain it so it
This
makes
is
sense to
so
you.
eye opening because you know what? And even as a young person, and this may be going into something different, but I know this is going to segue us into the talking about comorbidity and it being misdiagnosed. But
Mhm.
I've always been so big on people touching my stuff.
Oh,
Will send me into if I mean I'm
a
telling you
serious frenzy.
because I know where everything
Wanna
is. I
lay
got all
hands
my
on you,
little
girl. Wanna lay
setups.
hands on you for touching my stuff.
Yeah, I mean that would send me into I go from a 0 to a 10 if you done came in and touched my stuff. So so when you said
Yes,
that about how
because
you have it rearranged and she come
we
and
have it
rearrange
arranged the way it makes sense to our brains.
exactly. Yep.
Yes.
I will
Yes.
lose it.
You want it done the way you want it done. You need to leave my
Yep.
desk alone.
Right,
I don't come into
exactly.
your
Don't
desk
don't don't
messing
don't
with your
touch
stuff.
nothing over here.
And even with because a lot of times on the job, they're good at creating all these SOJs, the standards of operation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of times it didn't make sense to me. I'm the one doing the job. This did not make sense to me. You missing this. It was too generalized.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
I would do for myself, I would print it out. I'll
Mm-hmm.
leave it the way it did, but I would insert more
Mm.
detailed
Right.
breakdown,
Yep.
chunking it is what they call it. Chunking it into bite-sized tasks to make it make sense for me. So you're
Mm-hmm.
still getting it.
Yep.
I don't have to tell you all the little stuff that I did to get it to you. You got it and you got it on time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we've got to learn to do. Little things that we put in place to make it make sense to us. Nobody
Yep.
has to know what you're doing.
And you know what? And I have to say that I've never been officially diagnosed, but it's like you're in a world, like for example, maybe how left-handed people feel. You're in a world of people, everything for the most part is geared towards people that are right-handed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe a certain height, let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I've always felt like I'm in a world where
Out of place.
yes, like I
Mm-hmm.
always have to think like the way typically information is given, it just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
always stuck in a situation and I'm looking around like, do y'all understand that? Because that don't make sense
Uh-huh.
to me. You know
Right.
what I mean? And
Right.
I've had to do that all of my life. And
Yeah.
and for me, struggling with, I think that was a big part of me struggling with self-esteem because just to keep it real with you, I just thought
Yeah.
I wasn't that smart.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I know if I
Mhm.
struggle with that, I know there's a lot of other people, kids now and adults that have gone through
Mhm.
that and just never
Mhm.
knew what was
They
going
never
on.
knew. Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
diagnosed, or they figured out a way
Maneuver.
to maneuver or to
Mhm.
mask it. A
Mask
lot
it.
of them
Yep.
are
Maneuver
masking
and
it.
mask.
That
Yep.
that faking it till you make it. That's
Yep.
not getting you help. That's not getting you.
That's right.
That's not getting you the help you need. That's getting you any better. You're just gonna have to keep faking it until you make it. If you're good with that, hey, more power to you. But no, I can't do that. I don't want
Yep.
to do that.
So I'm sorry, I got a little excited. I know I did a lot of talking. So we have about maybe another maybe 8 minutes, let's just say.
Okay.
So tell us about the comorbidity and about it being misdiagnosed.
Okay. Comorbidities are other neurodivergent diagnoses that can go with ADHD. Very seldom is ADHD just a diagnosis by itself. It usually runs with anxiety, autism, bipolar, OCD, PTSD. There's usually something else. And a lot of times it gets overlooked because people think all those symptoms are all associated with ADHD.
Okay.
They overlap a lot of times, but there are significant differences. Maybe just one or two, but they are significant, which tells you that's not ADHD, that's something else.
Okay.
And just to be clear, a lot of us can struggle with executive function skills and not necessarily have one of those diagnoses. It could just be an executive function deficiency, like I said, from trauma or some kind of trauma to the head. You had an accident or childhood trauma, PTSD. It could be that, or it also could be ADHD, bipolar, epilepsy, one of those.
Okay.
So the diagnosis is important. You got to know what you're dealing with. And also keep in mind the adults that struggle with this and just realize it once they're becoming adults. Most adults don't realize it until they have a kid that's diagnosed.
Mm.
Then they start seeing similarities. Until then, it wasn't talked about, first of all. And if it was talked about, it probably wasn't allowed to be brought to light. That's considered a mental illness or a mental issue or special needs issue. It's really not. It's just our brain processes differently. That's it.
Right.
It processes differently. It may not make any sense to you, but it makes perfect sense to us. As long as we get done what you ask, that's all that matters.
Right. Okay.
And the adults that are walking around saying, or society that's saying you can't have ADHD as an adult. Yes, you can. An ADHD adult is an undiagnosed child who grew
Right.
up.
Okay.
That's where you get the ADHD adults from. They were never diagnosed or they were misdiagnosed.
Never
Or if
diagnosed
they
or
were,
misdiagnosed.
they were either never diagnosed, misdiagnosed, or underdiagnosed, meaning they got the diagnosis and either they didn't believe it and they just shoved it aside, or family or somebody significant shoved it to the side. We don't talk about that.
Okay.
We don't deal with that in our family. It's just like back in the day when you got, in trouble.
Okay.
Or something happened to you in the family, they swept it under the rug. We don't talk about that. It's the same thing they're still doing the same thing with ADHD. We don't talk about that.
So I done thought of another question. So tell us briefly now about the treatment. Like, I guess whether you want to talk about pharmaceutical and or different dietary lifestyle changes, talk a little bit about that before we conclude.
Okay. For my son, I did have him on a mild medication. It took me a month before I even put him on it because I really didn't want to put him on it, but I didn't know anything else at the time. Now that I've done my deep dive research for him and myself, I have learned that there are other ways to handle it, natural ways to handle it. And being outside in nature is one of the best ways.
Okay.
Being outside, exercising, moving, dancing. A lot of people don't like exercise, but who doesn't love dancing? Dancing can be so beneficial. I remember when we were in elementary school, we would do jumping jacks in class. That helps to reset the brain.
Mm.
That movement, that simple movement, jumping jacks for 5 minutes or 2 minutes, that helps to reset the brain.
Okay.
Going outside, playing helps to reset the brain.
Okay.
Jogging, running, swimming, any kind of exercise, any kind of movement. Make it fun. Make it something that you like. It cannot be something that somebody told you need to do, but you don't like doing that.
Okay.
I know a lot of people go to the gym. That helps them. I don't like going to the gym. That's not going to help me. I'll watch you go to the gym. Yeah, I don't like that.
She said, I'll watch you go.
Watch you go. I'm sitting at your choosy.
Right.
And watch you, but yeah, no, that's not my thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so simple things like that. Even fun stuff like we used to do back when we were kids. Jumping jacks, hula hoops, double dutch. All that fun stuff is very beneficial to strengthening our executive function skills.
Let me just tell you, I got a quick funny. I called myself was going to hula hoop. Ordered myself a little weighted hula hoop and everything. I figured it'd be fun. I could kind of trim my waist. Honey, I completely forgot how to hula hoop. I put that hula hoop
No,
on my waist for nothing. My son took
girl,
it. He was like, it's
like,
like this, mommy.
like dancing,
I couldn't do it.
like dancing. Get on up there.
Oh, I
Mm,
love dance. Oh, I dance all the time. But
yes.
when you said hula hooping, that's something that I remember from back in the day, like
Yep.
playing
We did hula
hopscotch.
hooping,
Yep,
jump roping.
yep,
Yeah,
jump rope.
all
Some
that
people jump rope. Some people do double dutch. All
double
of that.
dutch. Yep,
Yeah,
all that fun outdoor stuff. Yes, we need
yep,
to get back to that.
yep,
We need to
yep.
get back to that outside playing. That is what the brain needs to help to reset it, to stimulate it, and then go do the hard stuff.
And then do
Take a
the hard.
break. Do the
Okay,
hard stuff for like 30 minutes to an hour, then take a break
okay,
and get up away from the hard stuff. Don't just turn it off and then get on your phone.
right.
Get up and get away from the hard stuff. Go outside if it's not dark or whatever, and go do something out in nature, outside. Something
Okay,
that they like to do or something you like to do. That's
okay.
the important piece. It's got to be something that you like, that you're interested in.
What you're interested
Can't
in?
be, yeah, for the kids, it can't be what mom and daddy thinks that they. Oh, I used to like
Right.
playing football. You can't play football. No, no.
Okay,
Has your kid ever shown any interest in football? No.
right. So let us know, where can we find you to connect with you, work with you, and do you have any upcoming projects, I guess, that you can share with us?
I have a lot of upcoming projects, but I'm not going to share them just yet. Not just yet.
Okay.
But I can be found on social media, ADHD Cutie, pretty much everywhere. A lot of the things that I'm doing, especially if it's something new that's coming up, I'll put it on my YouTube channel. Again, that's ADHD Cutie, or I'll put it on Facebook. But most of the time, I'll put it on YouTube and put the YouTube link on Facebook.
Okay.
That's the best way to keep in touch and keep up with what I'm doing, what I have coming up,
Okay.
where I am in the world. So that's the best way to. But yeah, I've got books that I'm working on. I have a course that I'm creating. That's how the ADHD brain works. We've got all these things in the fire.
Right.
So I am just trying because all of them I love doing. All of them are
Okay.
so exciting to me. So
Hmm.
I've got to focus and
Okay.
do one at a time and finish it.
Right.
That's the key. Pick one thing and finish it from beginning to end before you
Mhm.
get anything else.
Okay.
That means putting anything away and out of your sight
Right.
that's going to distract you away from that one task that needs to be done. And that's with anything. And if it's something that you have to do that you don't like doing, put on some music.
Right.
My son and I do that. We put on music to get to sleep. I know a lot of ADHD people have trouble sleeping. Put on some music. And I don't mean booty shaking and hip hopping and rapping. That no. It needs to be music that quiets your brain. Go on YouTube and you can find something. Listen to the different types of relaxing, stress relieving, anxiety relieving, those types of music videos. Listen to some of them and see which ones you like. It could be just the ocean sounds, it could be rain and thunderstorm sounds, it could be piano with the wind, or it's whatever works for your brain. I know my son likes piano. I love just the ocean.
Okay. Okay. Well,
It's different. We're just different. That's it. We think and process differently, which
differently.
means our behavior and actions are going to be different.
Absolutely.
Not a deficiency. We're not a deficiency. We're not a defaulted version of normal. It's just different.
I like that. Well, thank you so much. That has brought us to the end of our programming today. So, again, make sure you subscribe to my A Queens Roundtable YouTube channel and give them your YouTube channel again.
ADHD cutie on single mom duty.
Okay. So, make sure you subscribe to both of us. That way, you can stay up to date on whenever we go live and just basically whatever else we have coming up next. So
Mhm.
again, you have joined us for the My Health is My Wealth. This is our virtual or mental health awareness virtual symposium that we're doing here for the month of March. So definitely check it out, share the recording, leave any questions or comments you have. All right. So until next time, everyone. All right. Take care.
Bye.